The Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, is a shared universe and media franchise centered on a series of Marvel Studios superhero films. The films are based on characters in Marvel Comics' American comic books. Television shows, short films, digital series, and literature are all part of the franchise. The shared universe was created by combining similar plotlines, setups, cast, and characters, much like the original Marvel Universe in comic books. Now that we've gotten this history lesson, let's look into the best to worst MCU films. First, we have Black Panther 2019, Wakanda Forever. Even the worst MCU films are entertaining, so the best is absolutely extraordinary, no more so than Black Panther. Ryan Coogler and his talented cast and crew have created a film that has something to say. It feels exceptional in its style and point of view, all while delivering on the usual superhero movie fare, such as lovable heroes, exhilarating action, and a compelling villain. T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P., is accompanied by laudable supporting characters such as Angela Bassett, Michael B. Jordan, Danai Gurira, and Letitia Wright. It took far too long for Marvel to make a box office bet on a black superhero. It paved the way for the kind of representation and inclusivity we want and need in the future. Getting a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's the most critically acclaimed movie in the MCU universe. Next, Avengers Endgame 2019. Many fans burst into tears while watching Iron Man deliver the last blow. Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., was the MCU's first hero and the most popular. The entire franchise revolved around him, and he had gone through many transformations over the years. Because of these changes, he could lock eyes with Thanos and say, "I am Iron Man," while snapping his fingers. Not only do they have emotional scenes, but the fight scene is something else altogether. The final battle of Endgame was everything it needed to be and more. From Captain, Iron Man, and Thor fighting Thanos, to the heroes trying to keep the gauntlet away from Thanos' forces, and the epic return of the dead. We can definitely see why it has a 94% fan rating. Up next, Spider-Man No Way Home 2021. Following the chronicles of Peter Parker, this sequel expands on the franchise's lore while still integrating the defining features of their movies. Peter Parker tangles with space and time in the most ambitious team-up since Avengers Endgame, only to have Doctor Strange unleash a spell that accidentally rips open the multiverse, reviving villains from Mark Webb's The Amazing Spider-Man movies and Sam Raimi's 2000s trilogy, as well as previous incarnations of the heroes themselves. Reprising their web-slinging roles as Spider-Man gave fans an unimaginable treat. Tom Holland's No Way Home is an emotional powerhouse despite the spectacle of reunions and returns, with Tom Holland's MJ, Marissa Tomei's May, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield as older, wiser Peters sharing the spotlight. Moreover, Willem Dafoe's as the Green Goblin is exceptional. The fantastic plot, alongside exceptional acting, gives this movie a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now we have Iron Man 2008. As played by Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark will go down in history as one of the most iconic characters in the superhero genre. Tony said, "We create our own demons," and he literally meant it when it came to the Iron Man trilogy. When Stark got his hands on the Mark I suit in the middle of the desert in the first film, it was clear that he unwittingly assisted Obadiah Stane in obtaining the tools of destruction. It was unique for its time. The villain had a compelling reason to be evil, and Jeff Bridges nailed the role. When you consider the MCU's progression, it's almost astounding how close and straightforward to realism the first Iron Man film was. It depicted the suit's early struggles, the reasons for a dispute between good and evil, as simple as the value of life versus the value of money. It has a 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and will remain a fan's ride or die. And lastly, for the best is Thor Ragnarok 2017. In the first two phases of the MCU, most of the films had to do one of two things. They had to either introduce a new character or a new concept or idea into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's essentially what the first two Thor films accomplished. The Thor movies didn't have much humor in them back then. Thor was a severe character, and there were many dramatic moments and scenes in the films. While some Marvel fans enjoyed such things, most audiences did not, as proven by their box office numbers. When Marvel hired Waititi to direct the next Thor film, everything changed. Waititi, who was an independent filmmaker who specialized in comedies at the time, was an unusual choice for this part, but his sense of humor worked well in the film, and many fans consider Ragnarok one of the MCU's funniest films. Waititi accomplished this while staying true to Thor's and other characters in the film's comic book roots. Thor was still serious at times, but he was also a lot funnier. Not only that, but the Thor film entire color palette was altered. Dark colors were prevalent throughout the Dark World. On the other hand, Ragnarok featured far more vibrant and bright colors. This shifted the tone of the Thor films from severe and dark to lighter and more fun, which fans did adore. This helped give the movie a solid 93% rating. We've talked a lot about all the good movies in the MCU. Let's now briefly look at the films that did not reach their mark. First, we have Black Widow 2021. Fans were extremely excited to hear that Black Widow would finally get her own movie. However, happiness was short-lived. Black Widow isn't just uninteresting, it almost goes out of the way to avoid having any sort of personality, displaying all of Marvel's worst tendencies. A boring visual style, a basic structure, and a mediocre villain. Marvel waited far too long to give Natasha Romanoff her own film, and as a result, her story was robbed of all stakes. Because the viewers know how she will die in the future, nearly every second of Black Widow, which takes place before the events of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, becomes inconsequential. All of this leads to it getting a review of 79%. Next is Avengers Age of Ultron 2015. It was thrilling to see these iconic heroes come together in the first Avengers film. However, it was difficult to replicate that feeling again in the Age of Ultron. Many fans expected the team to face Thanos in the sequel, based on the ending of the first Avengers film, but directors replaced the Mad Titan with Ultron. Even though early trailers hinted at a creepy and evil robot villain, the Ultron we saw in the movie was a letdown. Despite James Spader's excellent performance, the character's threatening nature was undermined by the character's misplaced humor. It felt like a lot of potential had been squandered. There are so many fantastic Marvel characters out there that it must be difficult for an MCU director not to get carried away with the number of heroes they include in a film. Although the first Avengers film featured all 6 original Avengers, the directors wanted to add more. Vision was one successful addition, yet Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver felt unnecessary and underdeveloped. The director appeared to be getting carried away when he also wanted to include Captain Marvel and Spider-Man. Hence, this movie got a rating of 76%. Next up, The Incredible Hulk 2008. The Incredible Hulk is the closest a superhero film has ever come to capturing the thrill of reading a comic book. It's debatable how well this experience translates to a film, but from a purely objective standpoint, watching Hulk feels like reading a comic book, complete with panels and over-the-top stylistic choices. This did not go well with the fans, giving this movie a 67% rating. Next on our list is Eternals 2021. Following the events of Avengers Endgame 2019, an unexpected tragedy forces the Eternals, ancient aliens who have been hiding on Earth for thousands of years, to emerge from the shadows to fight mankind's most ancient foe, the Deviants. Fans were really intrigued by the idea of having a whole new group of superheroes. Little did they know what they had gotten themselves into. The villains are one of the most frequently mentioned elements by critics and fans. Deviants, who rank right up there with Malekith from Thor: The Dark World, dragged the story down at every opportunity. They were lackluster and are uninteresting in design, but they also did nothing to advance the plot. Instead, they appear when the story requires an action beat and then vanishes. The action choreography is uninteresting as well. Moreover, the visual effects are incredibly dull. Then there's the fact that the most of the sequences are weak. There are no sentimental hooks or character instances to be found. It primarily consists of repeated scenes of superheroes punching bad guys. Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame are all expertly balanced movies in the aspects of their stories. However, one of the most challenging aspects of Eternals is that every character in the story is entirely new. Hence, the script had to create these characters from the ground up. That's a wrap for this video. Which movie do you think was the best or the worst? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.